Hey guys, welcome back to the Thriving in Love podcast, the podcast that challenges the status quo so couples can thrive as their most authentic selves. I'm your host, Sana. I am an embodiment mentor and the co-founder of Growth Club. And today I have an incredible guest, Erika Boehme. Erika and I have been in each other's orbits and universes for a little over a year. I've just so deeply admired their work. I'll give you guys a quick intro and then we'll dive into all the juiciness today. So Erika Boehme is a born rebel visionary. She is on this earth to shake it up and challenge the status quo. She leads badasses on transformational backpacking retreats in Oregon wilderness, liberates couples and individuals to have deeper love and better sex. She's a social, environmental, and pleasure activist and the host of Fuck the Box, Free Yourself podcast. Welcome, Erika. I am so excited to flow with you today.
Yes, I'm so excited too.
What a powerful bio. Yes, finally somebody who's not afraid of just saying who the fuck you are. I love that so much. Have you always been that way, or is that something that you had to really alchemize and step into? And when and how did you do that?
Yeah, it's so funny you actually say that because I wrote this bio last night and I even had a moment of am I too much? Is this do I want to say this? It was a very small sliver of an experience though.
Totally.
And then I was totally able to own it.
Yeah.
And so to answer your question, no, I've not always been this confident, I guess. It's funny. I was in a yoga teacher training in 2019 when I was not even legal age of drinking yet. And I remember we were all going around in the circle, saying one thing we loved about ourselves or maybe some way we had grown. And I said yeah, I'm really confident. And everyone in the circle agreed, yeah, you're super confident. But even just a year before that, I would have never said that. I grew up really shy and it was really hard to express myself and own who I am and take up space in the world. I always so deeply wanted to be able to do that. Part of my soul was girl, you are meant to shine. But I just put so much in the way of allowing that to happen. So yeah, a lot of my life journey has been about self-expression. And I sometimes call myself a self-expression coach because I'm really here to liberate others to be in the full expression of themselves too.
I absolutely love that. And yes, you're the full embodiment of that. When I see your content, when I see you expressed, it's just that is what your soul came here to do, not just for yourself, but I do believe that the paths that we go on for ourselves are the very medicine that the world needs. So it's amazing that you have allowed yourself to really own that in yourself, but then also be that torch for the people like you who needed that example. And did you have an example? Did you have people that you looked up to? Or is this something that was literally self-guided through and out?
Yeah, I would say majority was self-guided. I'm trying to remember when I really felt this fire or call to express myself more fully. And I think it was something that was guided from my soul. When I was younger and exploring, what did I want to do with my life and what's the life I wanted to create? I was really inspired by some different people I saw online and what they were doing. And it felt like a very different path than what I had been fed of what you're supposed to do after high school. So I was already thinking outside of the box. I'm wait, there's people who live these other lifestyles that nobody else around me lives. And I was really curious about that. And I went through a spiritual awakening quite young, before I even graduated high school. So I think that also really helped me to listen to and follow my own inner compass rather than what everyone else was telling me what to do. So having that foundation and knowing of myself, it was small compared to what I feel like I have right now, but at least that little bit really allowed me to be fuck all that. Let me listen to what I actually want. Let me take some risks and see if I can live the life that turns me on. And yeah, I really got obsessed with that journey of like, I'm going to live my most sublime life and I'm going to inspire other people to live their best lives in the process. Cause yeah, there was some, people like along the way that really inspired me to do that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. In the beginning, it was this sliver of like hope and light that really, like, you followed that little glimmer. And it doesn't need to be this like certainty and knowing that everything's going to be okay and everything's going to work out. I think the thing that people get stuck with is thinking that when they have their spiritual awakening, the whole world is going to open up for them and it's going to be instant gratification. And it's not like that at all. And that's the point, right? Is like the path is the initiation to the nirvana. So what were your anchor points in those moments when you knew that like there was another way available to you, but there was so much external noise? And I'm sure from people in your life, I'm sure from society and all of the patriarchal programming that we're here to really say no to and say yes to this new way of being. So what were your anchor points during those moments where you did feel like your faith or your belief systems were being challenged?
Mm-hmm. It's funny you say like the piece about the sliver, and we don't always know, we can't always get that instant gratification. I think something that really helped me was I was kind of young and ignorant.
Yeah.
So I was like, totally, I can do this. Like life hadn't beaten me down as much at that point. I really like believed things were possible for me and that they'd be a lot easier than they were. So definitely part of my journey was learning how to overcome failure, because there was a lot of things I sought out to do and thought they would happen way sooner than they did. They never happened the way that I wanted them to. So that was very much a part of my journey of how to not attach my self-worth to achievements, goals, dreams, and know that I am enough and I am whole regardless. So that was definitely something I had to learn and struggled with for many years. Some of the other anchors that I had were just this passion and zest for life. To me, it was like there's no other way. I am on this earth to be alive and to live my fullest life. So even if fear was in my way or doubts or people telling me that's not going to work, don't do that, I didn't really believe them, because I didn't like all the adults that were in my life at that time. I still related to them as, you don't actually know yourself. Like,
wow. You had a lot of awareness.
I did. I had a lot of awareness, and I feel like I was able to see through the cracks of society and the patriarchy. And I just like, I simply
It was a gift.
didn't want to listen to the advice of any adults around me, because I'm like, you're living a more limited version of who you are. So I'm not going to listen to your advice because you're not going where I want to go. Some anchor points for me were to really listen to the people who were actually doing the things that I wanted to do, believing the path was possible through looking at their journeys. And another anchor point for me is this concept I'll call spiritual leisure. It's not something I've talked about in a while, but I actually wrote my first ebook and my first coaching, created my first coaching program around this concept. It's kind of like a philosophy I created called spiritual leisure lifestyle. But essentially, spiritual leisure are the things you do that connect you to your soul and who you truly are. They're the things that light you up. They could be as small as going for a walk in nature or connecting with certain types of humans. So I really like as many spaces as possible in my life. I made sure I was connecting to that spiritual leisure, because also as an introvert, I need time with myself to be centered. If I spend too much time with other people or out in the world, I lose that center. So for me, learning who I am and not wanting to just follow the status quo of other people, this spiritual leisure for me became so critical to hear my own inner guidance and to feel more balanced. So that was definitely an anchor point for me in the beginning years of my journey.
Sounds like discernment, and it sounds like rebellion. The discernment of knowing who to be inspired by and who to listen to, the people that are doing the things that you want to do, and saying no to all the other authority figures that aren't living the life that turns you on. So that discernment piece, like, is that something you've always had in you? Is that something you had to cultivate? And then the second piece of the leisure, which I like to call the sacred pause, which is also the same thing as being rebellious against all of the noise that tells us rest is bad. You're not being productive. You need to be performing and hustling in order to get what you want. But it's like, no, actually being in my own energy and centering myself, completely detached from scrolling on my phone, receiving information from external sources, and tapping in is like so rebellious. I feel like that's like, you really do have to say no to your inner critic in order to have that kind of confidence to just sit in your own energy. So yes, discernment and rebellion are two topics I want to dive into.
Yeah, let's do it. I feel like discernment and rebellion for me are very closely related. Yeah, a lot of times my discernment comes from just my natural inclination to do things outside of the box. If something feels, I don't know, boring, or like I've already done it, or people do it that way, even if it's like I should maybe do it that way, like there's just a part of me that wants to do something completely different. I just feel the most alive and expanded being in that more innovative, visionary role. Just like, let me play in a space that nobody else plays in and let me see what happens. Or let me do something that I've never done before and see what it awakens inside of me. If I give the option to choose the safe, comfortable thing or the risky thing in the unknown, I will most likely choose the risky thing in the unknown. It doesn't always serve me. It does,
No.
but that's the, I don't know, that's the life contract.
But I'd rather learn from my own mistakes than follow somebody else's path.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here to learn and grow, and mistakes and failures are simply information. They're not setbacks or, you know, what society likes to tell you is like, oh my gosh, so much shame around failure. No.
Yeah, 100%. And I eventually in my journey, I was talking about I had to overcome like my fear of failure before and attaching my worth to achievement. Somewhere in that journey, I intentionally set out to fail on purpose and to do things where I know I'm going to fail because I wanted to teach myself exactly what you said, that there's always a lesson in the experience, that it doesn't mean anything about me. So a lot of people like wouldn't do that, where they know they're intentionally going to fail at something.
Yeah.
Like they would maybe say that's bad discernment, but to me, it gives me other gifts, and it helped me to rewire that really strong conditioning that I had. And now it's like the delayed gratification, because it serves me so much to have walked through the fire in that way, where now failure doesn't, I don't fear it as much anymore.
I love that. And it's kind of like a muscle that you are working on. A lot of people treat failure as something that, why would you do that? If you know you're going to fail, why would you do that? And I love what you said is like, yes, it's inevitable. And what I'm hearing from you is that is how you become an exceptional entrepreneur. And like, you know, spiritual entrepreneur or whatever, or any entrepreneur is like, I think the ones that get the most success in life are the ones that are a little crazy, are the ones that are a little like, no, I'm going to go for it, whether it works or not. And then I'm going to keep going. And I'm not going to let these things be, like you said, define my worth. They're just experiences. So it's like that, it's detachment from the self to what you came here to do in service for the world. It's so important to have that detachment.
And I'm really drawing a parallel right now to like love and relationship, because I view that in a similar way when we talk about vulnerability or taking risks to open yourself up to another
So good.
person, it's really the same thing. Like, I think we close ourselves off and we don't express ourselves fully because of a fear of failure, in a way that I won't be received in my vulnerability. So it feels safer to not say the things, to not lean into that connection. Yeah, we don't get
But
to
then you're missing
experience
out.
exactly what could be on the other side of taking that risk and maybe failing.
Speaking of romantic relationships, so are you in one right now?
I am. So in June next month, actually just in a couple of weeks, I'll be celebrating my 10-year anniversary with my life partner, who is also my high school sweetheart.
Oh my God, congratulations. I
Thank
don't know if you know this, but I just celebrated my 10-year anniversary last weekend.
you. Wow, I love that.
Look at us.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that you have been on the same path because let's dive into it. Let's dive into what it actually takes to get to 10 years. And I know that it's not about just hitting the number and this and that. It's like I celebrated 10 years as this huge milestone, not because of the number, but because of all the work and all of the patience and expansion and growth that went into both of us arriving into this moment. What was that journey like for you guys? Like, where did you guys start, and like what were the initiation points to get you guys into deepening into this love?
Oh my gosh, I'm just like gearing up in my seat, getting ready for this. There's so much I could share. It started in high school. His best friend kind of had a thing with my best friend. So we got connected in that way. It started out as like a summer fling, and we were really just connected instantly because he was one of those people who was really in tune with their emotions. And I mean, this was in high school. So most boys at that age are like closed off to their emotions and vulnerability, but he wasn't. So he really intrigued me in that way and allowed me to feel super safe in his presence. So we were just instantly hooked because of that. And it's funny, when the fall came and the next school year began, I remember we were in the commons area. I asked him, like, well, when are you going to ask me out? And he's like, I thought this was a summer fling the whole time. I didn't know you wanted to stay with me and be with me, because I was this high achiever, go-getter. I mean, I still am. And he just wasn't that as much. So it kind of didn't make sense that we clicked and aligned. And I think he didn't feel good enough for me in a lot of ways. But anyways, we started officially dating then. And we ended up being 3 years long distance, because I ended up going to college and he stayed in our hometown. So that was definitely an experience that we had to go through, being long distance, 4 hours away from each other. He would come visit me once a month. We eventually moved in together. He came to the town that I was going to college in after I graduated. Yeah, we moved in together, and I remember particularly this one evening. We were laying in bed, and I don't really remember how the conversation started, but we were really having an open and connected conversation. And this was the first month we had moved in together after being long distance the previous 3.5 years. Something happened where I felt the need to tell him something that I did while I was studying abroad in Costa Rica, where I felt unfaithful to him. I was flirting with this other guy. We ended up making out maybe 1 or 2 times. And in this conversation, the guilt was really eating at me. So I decided to disclose this information, even though I had no idea how he was going to receive it. I was like shaking in my boots about to tell him. And then when I shared this, he disclosed to me that he had actually had sex with another woman while we were long distance as well. So technically we had both cheated on each other. And technically his was worse, depending on, what schools of thought you're in around all that.
I agree.
Yeah. And for a lot of couples, like this might break them. They might lose trust with each other. They might even break up. Some people could argue it helped that we both had cheated on each other. But regardless, what we decided to do was come back to our love for each other and choosing each other acknowledging the space that we were both in for something like this to happen. And we chose forgiveness. And sharing this potentially like worst thing you could in a relationship actually brought us closer than we had ever been. And in that moment, I learned that honesty and conflict is actually the pathway to deeper love and trust and safety.
Louder for the people in the back.
Yeah. Ever since then, you know, when we've had conflicts, it always brings us closer.
Yes. 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 Like, I also like really, really want to like anchor into that because yes, same. And I do think that people think it's so much work, but really that work is getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, getting comfortable with what you just said. You were shaking when you told him. When I went to my husband and I said, I want my own apartment, I was shaking. I was like, I don't know how he's going to react. And you have to be willing to speak your truth while being fully okay with the outcome, being anything and everything. And I think that is what really, really scares people, that unknown of, I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm not going to risk it. But then you're living in a false world. It's not real. It's disconnected. It's staying surface level and walking on eggshells around each other because you're not open, honest, vulnerable, expressed, free.
Yeah. And then you have to hold those things inside because you don't feel safe enough to express them to the other person. And that
eats you up alive.
At you, exactly.
Oh
It's the same thing. So when we were talking about before, like the risk you take to do something that may seem a failure, it's like, well, what's the greater risk? Having this thing eat you alive and not be fully expressed and fully honest with your partner, or saying the thing and trusting however it goes that it's meant to be.
So good. So powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was vulnerable. You also mentioned on your website that you experienced an abortion. And I know how much shame goes into that experience. Whether you're religious or not, I think that as a woman, there's this feeling that you abandoned this child or you made a decision that is like really big. And I don't know, what was your experience like with that? And how did you come out the other side?
Yeah, so this abortion happened, I think I was either 19 or 20 years old, and it was with my life partner. And for me, I feel like the narrative around abortions at that time in my life was something that teen moms do. Like someone gets pregnant as a teenager and then they have an abortion, and it's this like awful experience. Yeah, filled with shame. And I was raised Catholic. I don't practice that religion anymore, but there's definitely that religious shame in there too. And I just remember like the thoughts were going through my head of like, I can't believe this is happening to me. Like you always think these other things happen to other people, but like not me, right? So like me having to sit with, oh, I'm someone who has had an abortion. That was filled with so much shame because I have never, ever heard an empowering narrative around abortion at that point in my life. Like I didn't tell anyone. I mean, I told my mom, who told my sister, and I told my partner. Like that was it. And for a long time, I didn't tell anyone. I kept that inside, and it ate me alive. And I remember I was following someone on Instagram, and they expressed that they had actually had 2 abortions. Like they basically told the story of like what I did around their first one, but then they had a second one. And that just like, so when I read that and them liberating their shame, it took away the sting a little bit at that point. But I still like wasn't sharing it with anyone. And then I was going on a backpacking trip with a friend, and it was just us 2. So we were driving to our destination. We were just having random conversations, and she ends up disclosing that she had had an abortion. But the way she spoke about it was like so neutral. Like there was zero shame in her space about it. And I was just like sitting with that. And like I had to in that moment also share like I've had an abortion too. And us being able to talk about like what had happened and not keep it inside was so freeing and liberating to me. And I realized how common it actually is to have an abortion, and like how many women are suffering alone with that shame and not talking about it. I really learned about shame in general with that experience, that if we keep it inside, like shame wants to hide because it's ashamed of itself. So keeping it inside actually keeps the shame alive. That's how it stays alive. But as soon as we speak about it to someone else and are received in love or compassion, it takes the charge of the shame away. So I started to do that actually with so many other areas of my life that I felt ashamed about. I just started having conversations with people and also sharing a lot of these things online on my platform. And that became super liberating and really became a permission slip for other people to liberate their shame. And now this is a huge part of the work that I do and something I'm really passionate about.
The courage that it takes to share something that you have for so long probably felt like this is wrong. And not only sharing it in that container with another woman, which, by the way, I think is the most safest and most beautiful ways to express anything that we are holding on to and hiding. And I think there's so much power in being witnessed by another woman. But then you took it to that next level and you started sharing it online, and anyone could see it, and anyone can attack it, and anyone can judge and say whatever they want. And I also believe wholeheartedly that a lot of our sole purpose here on this planet is to express online and receive both ends of that spectrum, the people you're inspiring and the people that get triggered and activated, and be able to sit and hold the full spectrum of how you're received and perceived out in the world, and making peace with all of it. Can we talk about that journey a little bit, about what it was like from sharing your story online? How did you do that? Did you create like a burner account, a secret account? Did you post it on your own account? And then were there people that knew you that were like, whoa, I had no idea that you went through this? And like, what was that like?
Totally. So I shared it on my business Instagram account. I remember a vulnerability hangover afterwards.
Yes.
I posted the thing and I was like so anxious inside, but not realizing why fully. But I just felt so unsettled, and I kept thinking like, should I delete the post? And I think I just went on with my day, maybe did some work things, but it was like always in the back of my mind. And I didn't really know what a vulnerability hangover was that first time. But then I noticed every time I shared something quite edgy, that same experience would come up. So that was a learning process for me to soothe my nervous system after the fact and really trust my expression that I decided to share. And that also started to make the process easier as I continued to just like share my deepest, darkest secrets online to liberate myself. And thankfully, I haven't experienced any hate or backlash of anything that I've shared. It's really just been people who appreciate it. And yeah, there was definitely people from my personal life who would comment or share and just really like express their love for me. So I'm really thankful to only have been received in positive ways that I know of. You know, some people could have read it, not commented, and said some other shit, but fuck them, I don't care. Like the reason why I'm posting these things are for the people who it can liberate, because I think it's so important to share about these sacred aspects of humanity that are taboo or shameful and just not talked about enough. Because the more we normalize them, the more everyone feels more free in their expression, more safe in their existence, more loving to themselves. And that has such a positive ripple effect, touches so many beautiful things in the world if more people did that.
Do you feel like it brought you closer to people in your life?
Yeah, definitely. I even remember I chose to share it with two of my high school best friends after we were reconnecting. And it was maybe like a year after my abortion happened, but it just like came up in conversation. And I think they were like even asking me about like kids and my future with my partner. So it just felt relevant to share. Yeah, I even remember like tearing up when I was sharing it. And that type of vulnerability, I think, always brings you closer to other people. So it feels special that they were able to know that. And at that point, not many people in my life had yet or something. So yeah, when you open up and share vulnerably, I always feel more deeply connected.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That is so powerful. And I'm glad that you only had those positive experiences sharing it, because it can be really hard. Like when I shared my story about living apart together, like, yes, it was celebrated by news outlets and this and that. But in my personal life, it was the opposite, where like it was a lot of, you're not a good wife, he's going to leave you, you're selfish, you deserve to die, basically. And it was really interesting. And I just want to give, the listeners some perspective on what to do if and when they do share, and if they have this negative feedback. And I love what you said about fuck them. Who cares? It's not for them, right? And it's like part of your soul calling is to continue sharing your truth out in the world to reach the people that you are here to be in service to and for. And another thing I love that you said is that you had to learn how to regulate and expand your nervous system. What are some practical ways that you did that when you had to really ease that anxiety of, oh my God, what did I just do? To like, no, it's okay. Like, is it breath work? Like, what exactly was it?
Yeah, it depends on like the physical response I'm getting. So sometimes I feel like a heaviness in my heart, or my heart beats faster. And in those instances, what really supports me is to stand up and do shaking, jump up and down, like shake off that energy. And also having a really like low voice and breath, like I'm feeling that vibration travel from my chest where it feels tight and there's a lot of energy, feeling that vibration move into my stomach and towards my womb and eventually down my feet and into the earth. So I love that practice. Like I even noticed I was a little bit anxious before this conversation today. So I was doing that, and it creates more space in my system.
I love that.
Also,
First of all, that's also really powerful to really feel that vibration of energy move through with that humming. It's so important.
yeah, and it can help to get you out of your head because you're feeling more of the sensations and the vibration. Because that's something else I notice is my mind's like, what if, like, regret, should I have done that? So it helps me stop that looping in my head. And yeah, just like affirming myself, hand on my heart, like, I trust you. I'm really proud of you for sharing that. No matter what happens, you're going to be safe. Like, isn't the worst thing that could happen in the world, because like our mind goes into, I'm gonna die, fear, people aren't gonna like me, I'm gonna be kicked out of the tribe. Like that
Exactly. Survival
is
mode.
nervous system. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. You have on your website that your flaws and your freak are sacred parts of you with profound superpower. Can we dive a little deeper into that? I love it.
Yeah, your flaws and your freak are sacred parts of you with profound superpower. So this really speaks to the shame piece that I was talking about before. You know, we may view our flaws as things that we're shameful of, or these freaky, taboo, out of the box, alternative lifestyle parts of ourselves. Like, you know, we all have parts of ourselves that go against the status quo. And I think that we are conditioned by society to think those parts of ourselves are wrong and bad, that we can't express them in the world or around other people. They need to be like hidden and shut away. That's just, all parts of you are sacred. Like, we can't label some parts good or bad because you are sacred. So therefore, all parts of you are sacred. If we shut out certain parts of ourselves, we are shutting ourselves out from the gifts and the magic and the freedom that could lie in those. like something that you're ashamed about, or your sexuality. For me, it was like wanting to be an entrepreneur and not like getting a 9 to 5. Like that was something that was out of the box. Yeah, really leaning into those parts of yourself. Like you're going to be able to access so much more of you because one, like you're not spending so much energy trying to suppress it or hide it or put on a mask. If you don't want someone to know something about you, it takes a lot of energy to keep that hidden. So when we're not doing that, it frees up so much more energy to, I don't know, be intentional in how you live or live the way you want to, or just have more fun and joy. So you're just able to access all these different flavors of you that may be dormant when we're trying to suppress any part of ourselves. And that's really where your superpowers lie. I mean, I believe a lot of things that are suppressed and condemned in society, it's because they actually hold a lot of power and truth. And that if people had access to them, we wouldn't be able to control them anymore. Like that's
100%, I agree.
that's the patriarchy right there. That women believing that you are small and weak, like that is so much bullshit. That's just a story to control.
And the system works in that way to keep us fragmented. Where like that's where it wants us. And what is fragmentation? Is when you suppress parts of yourself into the darkness and you don't let all of you and your wholeness be fully expressed or seen by your community. So yes, that is the sacred rebellion. That is the holy grail of feminine empowerment, liberation, actualization, enlightenment for the feminine path, is saying no to where they want you, is weak, small, good girl conditioning, in a box, etc. So like I want every listener here to hear that when you do this work, which is definitely not easy work, right? When you have spent years and I'm sure generations, because if you're experiencing it, it's because your past lives or your ancestors have experienced it and you're experiencing it so that you can feel the manifestation of that experience and learn how to integrate into your wholeness and reclaim that power. Also, like when you do share it with women, you realize that this is a generational thing and you're not siloed into this experience of abortions and rape and sexual assault and like all of these really shameful things that happen to, and like, again, like these aren't things that we should be owning as identity things that make us feel wrong. These are things that happened to us, for our liberation. So like, how do we anchor into this where it's like this practical way of seeing shame from a lens of this is the path to liberation. This is where the juice is. This is like not to run and avoid it, but to be like, oh, this is how I ascend. This is how I descend deeper into me. And like, this is how I become whole.
I really think it starts with love and compassion for these parts that feel bad and wrong for whatever reason, if someone told you that or whatever. And you may start with, if my best friend or my family member or my daughter experienced this, would I shame and condemn them? Would I think they were less of a human? Like maybe consider that's your conditioning, but I would have a guess that no, you love that person no matter what. And you would want them to experience love, joy, and happiness. So if you can be like, yeah, they're still worthy of all of that. You're no different. Like, sorry, girl, you ain't special. Like, can you give that love to yourself too, if you were able to give that to someone else and really start there?
That's powerful.
Yeah. Like, can I love these parts of myself that I've been taught are bad, wrong, and shameful? And not from an intellectual place, because that only is going to get you so far and may feel kind of fake, but really feeling it in your body. And sometimes that requires you to feel the badness and the shame first. Like, instead of numbing yourself to it or trying to pretend it's not there.
Or even bypassing and being, and like you said, surface level intellectualizing it as like, okay, I forgive myself. Okay, I, accept all parts of me, but it's not energetically real until you feel it in the body.
Totally. And this is where I think somatic work and embodiment work is so, so powerful.
Yeah.
So I would suggest for everyone to make a little playlist of maybe 3 to 5 songs of the energy that feels like what your shame has. If your shame is like anger, maybe some like metal music. If your shame is sadness, maybe some slower songs. And just for the length of that playlist or those couple songs, let yourself feel it all fully. Cry, rage, stomp, curl up in a ball, weep, maybe even laugh. Like, let yourself feel and express it all. And know that it's not going to last forever because you're creating this container with a beginning and an end. Feeling that first. And then once you feel like you've emptied yourself of that experience and felt it fully, is there a space for love to come in there? Maybe you feel it in your heart, wherever you feel love in your body or this essence of your soul. Like, see if you can actually feel that and let that come through. And I also want to share another tool that I love, or a principle, which is called it's the 2-to-1 pleasure to pain ratio. So anytime you do the hard work and you feel the feelings that you don't want to feel, make sure you spend double the amount of time in pleasure or doing something that feels really nourishing to yourself, because that is going to start to rewire your nervous system that anytime you experience something challenging, pleasure or care always comes after it.
Wow.
So then you're not going to fear feeling those things as much because oh, I'm going to wrap myself in a blanket afterwards, or I'm going to call my mom and have her tell her she loves me, like whatever that looks like for you.
I love that so much, and it's so practical. It's so grounded. Thank you so much for your magic and your wisdom today. How can my audience find you? How can they work with you? And what are some juicy things you have coming up?
Yeah. So on Instagram is my favorite place to express myself. My channel is at the.pleasure.nymph, the pleasure nymph. My website is erikaboehmecoaching.com. So those are probably the best places to check me out and enter into my world. And an exciting thing that I have going on right now are my transformational backpacking retreats. So those happen where I live in Oregon. It's 7 days in the wilderness and really using that healing, inspiring, creative, energizing power of nature to shut out all of that outside noise of how you should live your life and return to your inner compass and use the physical challenge of backpacking and climbing mountains to learn that you can do hard things, that you're a fucking badass, and experience that empowerment that you can map onto the rest of your life. So it's backpacking combined with coaching and more of this embodiment work. We do a shame, fire, release exercise. So like literally everything we talked about here, like we can dive into that. So if that activates you, feel free to reach out and check it out. We have one happening in June and one happening in August.
Oh my gosh, I want to go. So I'm going to check it out, and I'm going to put all the links below if anybody is interested in learning more about Erika and coming to these amazing retreats. All the links are in the show notes. Erika, thank you again so much.
Thank you.